Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'na wa zidna ilma. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Inshallah ta'ala, we are going to continue with our halaqah series. Before I begin, I really want to encourage everyone to please remember the people of Gaza in your du'as, particularly now with the situation that is taking place in Rafah. What is happening today is really horrific. War crimes are taking place, so we need to remember them in our du'as. And it further highlights the importance of what we're talking about, because when we look at the world today and we ask ourselves, why is it that all of these nations with their power, with their riches, are unable to do anything to stop this genocide taking place in Gaza? We again come back to this point where it is, these nations, they understand rationality purely in terms of material progress. They don't understand rationality in terms of ethical duties. For them, what rationality means, what intellectual advancement means, is purely about material progress. Technological developments that simply make the rich richer and the powerful more powerful. And so we see that these nations are not motivated to do anything to stop these horrific war crimes. And even the political structures that they've created, the United Nations Security Council and all of these different institutions around the world, they are dysfunctional in bringing about justice. There's vetoes at the UN Security Council, right? Whenever a decision comes to halt the fighting, there's a veto. Why is this the case? Because every nation is looking out for its political interests. So these nations are not motivated to strive for moral and ethical objectives. And this goes back to what we talked about. The main difference between the aql, the intellect, as it is understood in the Islamic tradition, versus how the intellect is understood in secular modernity, in Western civilization, in the colonial thought structure, is that for us the intellect is understood according to its moral and ethical dimensions. The word aql itself cannot be understood without understanding these moral and ethical aspects to it. The aql is what restrains you from immoral conduct. It keeps you on the path of what is good. Whereas the way the intellect has been understood since the European Enlightenment and in the Western tradition is the intellect, human rationality is about conquering nature, dominating nature. And for the European enlightened races to dominate and subjugate the primitive, backwards nations of other races around the world. This is something that, if you go back to some of the Enlightenment thinkers like John Stuart Mill, one of the founding thinkers of liberalism, he says it explicitly that the freedoms only belong to the Europeans, and the primitive, savage, backward races, they don't get these freedoms. They need to be managed by totalitarian powers and tyranny. So this is where the problems are coming from. These thought structures, these ways of thinking, dysfunctional ways of thinking, what we talked about, these psychoepistemic disorders, which cause people to view the world in a way that is deeply immoral. And so what we are doing is we are reinvestigating what is the meaning of the aql from an Islamic perspective, from a Quranic perspective, and from a prophetic perspective, studying the work of one of the most important hadith scholars in the Islamic tradition. And who remembers the name of the scholar whose work we're studying? Yes. Ibn Hibban al-Busti. So Ibn Hibban al-Busti, he wrote this work. He died 354 years after the Hijrah. And he wrote this work, Rawdatul Uqala. Rawdatul Uqala, the gardens of the intelligent or the intellectuals. And it is about the traits of those people who have aql, those people who have intellect. And he collects in it 50 different ethical traits. And in the last class we read the muqaddimah, the introduction. Now, raise your hand if you've attended more than 3 classes, 3 or more classes. Okay, just so, raise your hand if you're here for the first time. Okay, mashallah, a lot of people. That's good. Okay, so no problem. So we've mentioned some points in previous classes, but you'll get the sense there are certain things, important principles that are repeated. And so for those who have been attending, it's a good reminder and adding further explanation. And for those people who are new, they'll get that benefit. But who remembers in the introduction, Ibn Hibban says that in his time, he talks about why he's writing the book, and he says, in the times in which we're living in, and remember he lived 1,100 years ago, a long time ago, and he says, in the times in which we're living, we notice that people have taken the intellect to be something totally different from what it's supposed to be. And they reduce the intellect to 4 things. Can anyone mention one of the 4 things that he mentioned? Yes. Hypocrisy, nifaq. So the idea that the aql, to be an intelligent person, means that you're betraying your Islamic principles. And this is something we find again today. Muslims who have an inferiority complex. They think that to be intellectual, I need to somehow give up on my Islamic identity. Islam is holding me back. So I will just be a quote-unquote cultural Muslim. But the beliefs, the values, the commandments, the instructions of Islam, that doesn't matter as much to me. I will just be culturally Muslim, and I will try to assimilate myself within the surrounding culture so that I can get ahead, right? So that same attitude exists. It also existed in the time of Ibn Hibban. So he said the idea that we have to be fake Muslims, right? The idea that we have to betray our Islamic values in order to be intellectuals, that was one of the ideas that he criticized. Okay, what else were of the 4 things that he said became popular? So we mentioned nifaq, yes? Compromise, al-mudahana. So he says, al-nifaq wal-mudahana. So al-mudahana is the idea of compromise, appeasing someone, giving up on your values. So nifaq is like a more severe level, and al-mudahana is a lesser level, right? But they're both entailing some degree of compromise. And what were the other 2 that he mentioned? Who remembers? Yes. Fashion and eloquence, exactly, right? So fashion and eloquence, having fancy speech, wearing a nice suit, right? People suddenly take you as an intellectual. Right? If you appear on a talk show wearing a thobe and a kufi, people are going to be like, who's this guy? But you go with a 3-piece suit, and now everyone's like, oh, mashallah, this is a big intellectual here, right? So this kind of thing, looking at the superficial appearance of things as a source of where the wisdom is coming from. Right? That's another problem that people have. All right, so we mentioned those different points, and he said that's why he wanted to write the book and collect the wisdoms from different scholars of his time. Now, which region did Ibn Hibban live in? Or where did he come from? Does anyone remember which country? Yes. Afghanistan. Yeah, so Ibn Hibban al-Busti, he was born in Bust. It's modern day Lashkargah. It's in Afghanistan. And he then traveled across the entire Muslim world, basically. He traveled to 40 different cities, learned from hundreds and hundreds of teachers. He traveled all the way to Egypt. So basically traveled the breadth of the majority of the Muslim world, gained all this knowledge and wisdom from so many different teachers, and then he comes back to his native town where he teaches until he passes away. And actually, one of the things that you'll notice about the work is he's not only quoting a hadith, he's also quoting sayings of scholars, wise sayings of scholars, and he's also quoting lines of poetry as well. So these lines of poetry are, containing wisdoms that have been passed down, right, from the early generations. Right? So he's also transmitting this as well to illustrate the same points that he's mentioning. So we read the introduction last time, and now we will read the first chapter, which is called the chapter on adherence to the intellect. Al-hathu ala luzum al-aql. Which is interesting. The intellect is something that you have to adhere to. Right? We'll talk about that. And wasifatul aqil al-labib. Right? The traits of the wise, rational person. Fadl, inshallah. So Sheikh Faiz is going to read for us, inshallah.
عن سهل بن سعد رضي الله عنه قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله يحب مكارم الأخلاق ويكره سفسافها.
Yeah. So the first hadith that he mentions is the hadith that has been reported by the companion Sahal ibn Sa'ad radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet Muhammad said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ وَيَكْرَهُ سَفْسَافَهَا. That verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the traits of noble character. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the traits of moral character, noble moral character, and Allah despises the vile characteristics. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despises bad character. And what he mentions immediately after in his commentary, he says that, actually you can read it inshallah.
قال أبو حاتم رضي الله عنه لست أحفظ عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم خبرا صحيحا في العقل لأن أبان ابن أبي عياش وغيرهم ليسوا ممن أحتج بأخبارهم فأخرج ما عندهم من الأحاديث في العقل.
Now, so he says that I have not found preserved any hadith, authentic hadith from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ specifically mentioning the word aql. Right? Specifically mentioning the word aql. And then he says because the narrations of these people, and he mentions a bunch of different people who are transmitters, he said these people are not considered reliable transmitters in hadith. Okay? He said these people are not considered reliable. He mentions different names, right? Aban, Ibn Abi Ayyash, Salama, Umair, all these different names that he mentions. These are not reliable transmitters, and so therefore I won't use what they have mentioned, that there's this hadith about aql or that hadith about aql. He says, I'm not going to mention that. So he's saying there is no authentic hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that mentions the word aql, right? Or the virtues of the aql. But this hadith that he's quoting, he says this is about the aql. And I'll explain why he says this is about the aql. But one of the things I just want to mention now is when Ibn Hibban makes this statement, he is an imam in hadith. And when he says, I have not found, preserved, or I have not memorized, or I have not documented any hadith that's authentic from the Prophet ﷺ about the aql, we can take it as a fact, right? This is someone who is an expert in the field. But it's also important for us as Muslims to understand a little bit about hadith sciences, because this was one of the greatest achievements in human history, the development of a precise, meticulous science to ascertain exactly what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said. Prior to this, we don't have the existence of any similar type of methodology or science in any other human civilization to precisely confirm historical details. This has really, formed the basis of the science of history. Till today, historians look at the same principles that hadith scholars were using, the idea of corroboration of evidence, right? Questioning the reliability of sources. Right? These are all principles that come out of the hadith sciences. So what are the principles that allow a hadith scholar to say that a hadith is authentic? There are 5 principles that are mentioned in the sciences of hadith. Does anyone know what are some of the principles to declare that a hadith is sahih? Of course, when you're reading a book or you're hearing in a lecture, somebody says, this hadith is authentic, this hadith is weak. But maybe you're not aware of how they come to this judgment. So what are the things that the scholars use to know that the hadith is authentic? Yes, go ahead. Okay, excellent. So these are 2 points. So number one, mashallah, excellent. So number one, that if the person transmitting the hadith is not reliable, doesn't have dabt. Dabt it means that they have accuracy. When they mention something, the details that they mention are also confirmed by other narrators who narrate, the same narrations that they do. Right? If generally speaking, when they narrate something and other people narrate things that correspond with what they say, we can confirm this transmitter has a high degree of accuracy. They don't have forgetfulness, they don't have negligence, they're not making mistakes, they have dabt, right? So every narrator has to have accuracy or reliability. And the other thing that was mentioned is they also have to have integrity, moral integrity, which is mentioned as adala. So they can't be somebody who is dishonest. So they have to have reliability, meaning their memory and transmission should be reliable. And they also have to have integrity, meaning moral integrity. That they are not somebody who's known to lie or to be dishonest. And the scholars were very, very specific in this. Right? There's a narration that's mentioned about Imam al-Bukhari that he was going to go and learn hadith from someone, and he saw the person was trying to get his camel to come to him and was pretending to have some food in his hand, right, to get the camel to come. Imam Bukhari saw this, he turned away, he turned around and walked away. He said, if this person is deceiving his camel, and he has some element of dishonesty in him, I will not trust him when it comes to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So they maintain absolute scrutiny on these 2 things related to each narrator. So these are 2 of the 5 conditions. These are the 2 conditions that are related to every single narrator in the chain of transmission. Has to be highly accurate in what they transmit. They can't be forgetful. They can't make mistakes. And they also have to be very honest. They have to have integrity. They can't be somebody who deceives. Okay? So those are 2. What are some of the other conditions? Yes? Yep. Okay, so that's the first one. So it has to have an unbroken chain of narrators going back to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So when you look at, Ibn Hibban says that I heard from this person, from this person, from this person, from this person. That's mentioned here, right? He says, he mentions all the narrators between him and the companion of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Ittisal sanad. This is a connected chain of transmitters. If somebody is missing from that chain, then the chain is munqati'. It's munqati'. It's a broken chain, and that is one of the reasons why the hadith will be weak. Okay? Now, it could have a connected chain, and you have narrators at every generation, but maybe one of the narrators also sometimes makes mistakes. They don't have dabt. Then it will also become a weak narration. It won't be authentic narration. Now, if one of the narrators is accused of lying or dishonesty, it will go from being weak to being considered mawdu', fabricated narration. So this is the classification, right? These are all of the requirements that need to be there for a hadith to be authentic. It has to have a connected chain. Every narrator has to be reliable. Every narrator has to be honest and have integrity. They have to have adala. They have to have dabt. They have to have adala. What are the other 2 conditions to complete the 5? Yes? So this is an excellent point. So mutawatir is another statement that or terminology that scholars of hadith use, but it refers to the number of chains. So it's actually not a requirement for a hadith to be sahih. So mutawatir means that you have so many different chains of transmission for this hadith that it's impossible that all these narrators could have gotten together and invented this. It's impossible that they could have all gotten together and conspired to make a lie or fabrication. So it conveys this highest degree of confidence. It's called mutawatir. But you could have a hadith that is less than mutawatir, meaning ahad, right? It has less chains of transmission than the threshold required to be mutawatir, and yet it is still sahih, right? So you could even have a hadith with one person in each link, and it could still be sahih. Okay? In fact, the very first hadith in Sahih Bukhari is like that, and the very last hadith in Sahih Bukhari is like that. Some scholars say this is why Imam Bukhari wants to prove that this is also something he's trying to prove, is that even one link in each, even one narrator in each link in the chain can also be Sahih hadith, as long as it fulfills the 5 conditions. So we mentioned 3 so far: connected chain, reliable, integrity. Yes. Yeah, adamul ilal. Adamul ilal. It cannot have any hidden defects. Cannot have any hidden defects. What are hidden defects? There's something that a hadith scholar would notice when they examine in detail the chain of narration, and they realize that it looks like it's a connected chain, but really this person is mentioning this, that they heard from this person, but we thought their name was this, but really their name is this, and this person didn't hear from them. Something like this. There are certain hidden defects, right, within the chain, which there's entire works just on hidden defects, but this is something that hadith scholars look at. Something that could compromise that connectedness of the chain of narrators. So it can't have any hidden defects. And then the 5th condition. Yes. Yeah, what does that mean? That it doesn't have shudud. Adamu shudud means? So you're on the right track. It doesn't go against. So what kind of corroborating evidence? Yeah, so Adamu Shudud means it doesn't contradict something that is more authentic than it. Okay, so that's what it is. So these are the 5 conditions in order for a hadith to be declared authentic. So this is some important background for us to know. Now, he is mentioning this authentic hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the good qualities of moral character, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despises bad character. Now, the question that comes to mind is, what does this hadith have to do with the aql? And so he's going to tell us. Now, inshallah.
وإن محبة المرء المكارم من الأخلاق وكراهته سفسافها هو نفس العقل، فالعقل به يكون الحظ ويؤنس الغربة وينفي الفاقة، ولا مال أفضل منه ولا يتم دين أحد حتى يتم عقله.
No. So he says that a person's love for the good traits of moral character, and for a person to despise bad character, this is nafsul aql. This is the essence of the intellect. So that is why he's mentioning this hadith. He's saying the love of good moral character and hating bad character is the essence of what intellect is. So he begins the entire work with a hadith that emphasizes moral character, because he's saying the moral character is the basis of the aql, is the basis of rationality. And this shows us that rationality from the Islamic perspective, the basis of it is ethical character. The basis of it is the moral dimension. And this is something that, if you look at other hadith about the Prophet, from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, you see how much moral character is emphasized in our deen. That the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have only been sent to perfect the traits of moral character. All of Islam is about moral character. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he has a chapter title in Madarij al-Salikin, in his work Madarij al-Salikin, which says, الدين كله خلق فمن زاد عليك في الخلق زاد عليك في الدين. That the religion in its entirety is about your moral character. So whoever surpasses you in moral character has surpassed you in the religion. The entirety of our deen is about our moral character. It is about our moral character in our relationship with Allah, with our Creator, and in our relationship with His creation. All of the deen can be summarized like this. And this is very important for us to understand, because sometimes youth have this question now. They grow up in a society that is secularized, where religiosity is seen to have nothing to do with morality. Right? So being a religious person means you come to the mosque, you pray, you read Quran, but it doesn't have anything to do with your moral character or conduct. So you get this question now, where people say, is it better to be a good Muslim or a good person? Raise your hand if you've heard somebody ask this question before, or some variation of it, right? Is it better to be a good Muslim or a good person? One of the things we learn from this hadith is you cannot be a good Muslim without being a good person. Islam is inclusive of all aspects of moral conduct. And any conception of morality, the opposite aspect is that any conception of morality which doesn't consider our moral conduct in relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fundamentally flawed. You cannot understand what it means to be a good person if you don't take into consideration your purpose in life. Why you were placed on this earth. What is your status relative to others? What is your role and responsibility relative to others? Right? To be a good person, what does that mean? It means you fulfill your responsibilities. Okay, well, how do you know what your responsibilities are? Right? So this is an example that I give people. When people say, well, why does it matter if, maybe somebody can just live life the way they think is good and try to be a nice person. But the question is, are you fulfilling the actual responsibilities that you have for which you have been created? So to give an example, imagine somebody has an exam, right? They have a math test. And they go for their math test and they sit down and they work very hard during the test. The teacher sees them writing the whole time and they submit their test. And instead of writing answers to the math problems that are there, they wrote something entirely different. They wrote like answers to their history class on the math test. What will they get? They'll get a 0, right? They will fail the test. Even if all the answers they wrote were perfectly suited for their history test, they were not what was asked of them on this exam. So when you were created, something was asked of you. When you were created, we took a covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we talked about that in one of the previous classes. We had a mithaq, we had a covenant. So we had a responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we took an oath to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and to live our lives striving to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by behaving virtuously in this world, enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil. We have a moral contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't fulfill the responsibilities, you've broken that contract. Right? So this is the purpose for which we've been created. So there's two problems here. One problem is people who think that, religiosity has nothing to do with morality. So I can be a good Muslim without caring about how I treat my parents, how I treat my spouse, how I treat my children, how I treat my neighbors, how I treat others. That's one dysfunctional problem. That's unfortunately a problem many cultural Muslims have. And then there's another problem, which is the problem of many people in the secular worldview, which makes them think, I can be a good person without caring about my beliefs in the Creator, what is the purpose of my life, what happens to me after I die, why I exist. I can be a good person if I just focus on, quote unquote, being nice. Now, to be honest, being nice, this attitude that a lot of people have is like, everybody is a good person, they just kind of go with the flow. You see that many of the people who have been following this path, they don't, raise any concern over what's taking place in Gaza, because they were just following the path of the least resistance, right? And they were thinking, I'm nice to people. I hold the door for them when they're walking behind me into a store. I say hi to my neighbors. That's what it means to be a good person. And then genocide is taking place in Gaza, and people need to speak and act out, right? And engage in activism to stop this, and they think, this is not really affecting me. I'm still a good person. I still smile at my neighbors. I still take my kids to the park, right? So what does it mean to be a good person? What are our responsibilities when something like this is taking place? All of a sudden, our perception of people who are still posting on social media and haven't said anything about the genocide in Gaza, our perception about them is very different. Are these really moral people if they're just going about their business and not caring about what's taking place? Because when these rights are being violated, a person has to recognize that's a huge moral transgression, and it imposes on me a responsibility to do something about it. So everything in terms of morality cannot be understood without understanding our purpose in life, our roles and responsibilities in life, the reason for which we have been created. All of these things, that you can't separate justice from truth. That's what it comes down to. So today you have this idea that you can be good, you can have some idea of justice, but you can dismiss these fundamental truths about why we exist. What is the purpose of my life? And those are both problematic ideas. So he explains that love of good character is the essence of what morality is. And then he mentions that the aql is also what makes a person comforted when they're estranged. It's something that negates any sense of loss, and there is no wealth that is better than it. And a person's deen, a person's religion, will not be completed until they complete their aql. So you see how aql is tied to the deen, how it is tied to morality. Aql, this concept of rationality that we have, is a very comprehensive concept because it understands why we exist, it understands our purpose in life, it understands our rights and responsibilities, our duties. All of this is tied together. So we'll continue to read what Imam Ibn Hibban says about the aql.
والعقل اسم يقع على المعرفة بسلوك الصواب والعلم باجتناب الخطأ فإن كان المرء في أول درجته يسمى أديبا ثم أريبا ثم لبيبا ثم عاقلا كما أن الرجل إذا دخل في أول حد الدهاء قيل له شيطان فإن عتى في الطغيان قيل مارد فإن زاد على ذلك قيل عبقري فإن جمع إلى خبثه شدة شر قيل عفريت وكذلك الجاهل يقال له في أول درجته المائق ثم الرقيع ثم الأنوك ثم الأحمق وأفضل مواهب الله لعباده العقل.
Okay, so he gives the definition of the aql. So he says the aql is a word that is used for al-ma'rifatu bisuluk al-sawab. So it is knowledge of the correct manner of conduct. It is knowing how to act correctly. And it is knowledge of how to avoid error. So what is rationality according to the Islamic understanding? What is the aql? It is knowing what is correct action and knowing how to avoid incorrect action. So you can see the connection with the aql and with action. How to act rightly and how to avoid error. Now, some of the scholars say actually Ibn Hibban could have been more comprehensive here, because it's not just ma'rifah, it's not just ilm, it's not just knowledge of what is right, how to act rightly and how to avoid wrong, but it is also doing that. It is also acting according to that knowledge. It's not just ilm, it is also amal. So some of the scholars, they say here that actually when you look at a statement like Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says that in the usage of the Salaf, early Muslims, most of the early Muslim scholars, they use the term aql to also include acting according to that knowledge. Not just knowledge of what is good conduct and what is bad conduct, but also acting according to it. One could not be called al-aql if they don't act according to it. So that's a kind of higher level of the aql. And this is something that, Ibn Hibban then indicates that there are actually levels of this, right? It's not just everybody is at the same level. There are levels to the extent, there are levels that describe the extent to which people know what is right and act according to it. Okay, so he mentions there the first level is the adib, right? Somebody who is, you could say maybe smart, right? Somebody who is proficient. Then there's arib, right? Somebody who is wise. Then there is labib, somebody who's a deep thinker. Then there is the aqil. The aqil is the most rational, right? There's different levels. Similarly, when it comes to somebody, he mentions there are also levels to bad conduct as well. So you have shaitan, then you have marid, then you have abqari, then you have ifrit, right? The different levels of transgression. And he also says when it comes to the jahil, when it comes to somebody who is ignorant, there are levels of ignorance. There are levels of stupidity. Right, so level 1 is al-ma'iq, level 2 is al-raqi', level 3 is al-anwak, level 4 is al-ahmaq. Level 4 in terms of irrationality. So does this mean now you can say to somebody, okay, you know what? You're a level 3 idiot. You're a level 4 idiot. I need to avoid spending company with you. What it means is a person should realize there are these levels of intelligence, and we want to spend most of our company with the people at the higher levels of intelligence, so we will benefit from that wisdom and become more righteous. And there are levels of ignorance, stupidity. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And you see this on social media, you realize, oh my God, this whole Twitterverse, this is level 4 stupidity. I need to save myself from this, or else I will start to degenerate in terms of my own rational capabilities and faculties. So this is one of the other things, that a person should realize. There are levels of wisdom, there are levels of ignorance, and we want to strive to attain the highest level of wisdom. And in reality, what we realize when we do muhasabatun nafs is each and every one of us, we make some wise decisions, we make some not so wise decisions, if I'm being polite, right? Or you can say ignorant decisions, right? So each and every one of us, we want to eradicate from ourselves any traces of idiocy, right? And we want to develop within ourselves traits of wisdom that will guide us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and guide us towards virtuous conduct. So we have to kind of constantly evaluate our own actions. If this is my goal, right? And people do this, for example, when it comes to losing weight, right? Or dieting, right? This is my goal. I'm trying to lose weight. Why did I just eat the entire cheesecake? Right? This is a level 4 stupidity. This is my goal, it doesn't bring me towards my goal. So similarly, we have to have this kind of goal-directed behavior when it comes to our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to developing within ourselves traits of patience, traits of gratitude, humility, mercy, generosity. All of these traits, these are our goals, okay? We want to do level 4 wisdom. We don't want to do level 4 stupidity when it comes to these different traits. And he says that the greatest and most virtuous gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to His servants is the aql. When you understand the aql in this comprehensive sense, it includes the deen, it includes, ethics, it includes morality, then you understand this is actually the greatest trait that has been given. So we'll go to number 3 now, inshallah.
حدثنا حبيب الجلاب قال قيل لابن المبارك ما خير ما أعطي الرجل قال غريزة عقل قيل فإن لم يكن قال أدب حسن قيل فإن لم يكن قال أخ صالح يستشيره قيل فإن لم يكن قال صمت طويل قيل فإن لم يكن قال موت عاجل.
Okay, so now we see that he started with the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now he's mentioning some of the statements, wise statements from scholars of Islam. So he mentions here a statement from Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. Raise your hand if you've heard of Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak before. Okay, a few people. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, Imam Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak is a great early scholar of Islam. So he died 181 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So remember, Ibn Hibban died 354. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, he's like a century and a half before him. He died 181 Hijri. So this will put him in the same time period as the Imams of fiqh, right? He's before the Imams of hadith, because Ibn Hibban is coming at the end of the Imams of hadith. Before the Imams of hadith, you have the Imams of fiqh. So Abu Hanifa died 150 Hijri. Imam Malik died 179 Hijri. Imam Shafi'i died 204 Hijri. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal died 240 Hijri. So Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, he died 181 Hijri, so he's a contemporary of Imam Malik. And in fact, he met Imam Malik as well. Now Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, he was a scholar of many different disciplines. He has a work on zuhud. He has a work on zuhud, which is how to abstain from the dunya. You can see his wisdom in composing such a work, right? What does the obsession with the dunya do to us in terms of degrading our intellect, right? So you see how that's connected to his emphasis on the intellect. But he also was somebody who used to participate in the battles on the frontiers in defense of the Muslims. He was personally involved as a mujahid. He was somebody who was a scholar of poetry. He was a scholar of fiqh. He's considered, like, in his own right, an independent mujtahid, a leading scholar of fiqh. He was a scholar of hadith. He was a polymath. And this is one of the things that you see about early scholars. Actually, throughout the Islamic tradition, you see this. Muslim scholars adopted an interdisciplinary approach to the study of knowledge, which is very different from how we approach education now in modern culture, right? So the way we approach education in modern culture is, you go through some generic subjects in your elementary schooling, but then once you get more advanced and you go into your graduate studies, you get pigeonholed. Right? So this person only learns engineering, this person only learns law, this person only learns mathematics, this person only learns medicine, this person only learns computer science, and you become only aware of one domain of knowledge. Right? This creates a problem because everyone's worldview then and understanding of reality is fragmented, right? It's not interconnected. And this is actually something very interesting that, again, going back to the Wa'il Hallaq, a non-Muslim professor of Islamic studies, he actually identifies this. He said that if you look historically at Islamic civilization, it would not be uncommon for somebody who is a scholar of fiqh to go then and sit in a class on hadith studies or aqidah, or a scholar from this area to go and sit in this discipline. Because scholars didn't pigeonhole themselves, they would engage in multiple disciplines. So even though somebody might become very noteworthy in one particular science, they had a massive breadth of knowledge as well. And it's so common to find scholars who were polymaths. Polymath means somebody who's a specialist in multiple fields. It's common in the Islamic tradition to find people who are polymaths. And when you bring this expertise in multiple fields to your study of Islam, you benefit more. And especially when you bring it to your study of the world, right? When you study the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in creation, you benefit more from having this interdisciplinary approach. To understand about the various different fields of knowledge. And one of the problems for Muslim civilization in the post-colonial period is we lost that. So in the post-colonial period, when you talk about somebody being a religious scholar, generally speaking, they don't have knowledge of the natural sciences, for example. Or they don't have knowledge of other disciplines of human knowledge. And their knowledge generally is restricted to knowledge of scripture. But from an Islamic understanding, both scriptural knowledge and natural knowledge are both types of religious knowledge. This is the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in nature and the ayat of Allah in scripture. The signs of Allah in nature and the signs of Allah in scripture. Both are actually religious knowledge. So we don't have this division in Islam between religion versus science. Both of them are actually integrated. And that's a problem we see in the post-colonial period. The post-colonial period is one of the things that Muslims suffered from is this loss of interconnectedness, this separation and people becoming pigeonholed. And as a result, you have a lot of limitations, right? When people speak about certain subjects, they're not seeing all the different perspectives. And if you think about the issues that Muslims are struggling with today, you realize the importance of a multidisciplinary perspective, right? Somebody comes for counseling. So if somebody comes for counseling, you need to have an understanding of psychology. You need to have an understanding of Islamic theology. You need to have an understanding of Islamic jurisprudence. You need to bring at least a basic, rudimentary understanding. I'm talking about basic level literacy, right? In order to guide this person with some of the questions that they're dealing with. And because people don't have that, because we're all compartmentalized, people's questions are not being addressed, right? People's questions are not being addressed. And that was one of the things that was part of our vision with developing Yaqeen Institute. We focused on bringing specialists from multiple different fields of knowledge, right? So you have the psychotherapists, you have the imams, you have the experts in Islamic law, you have the experts in Islamic history, you have the experts in anthropology, you have the experts in political science, and they all discuss, and then you have this research that comes out and this content that is produced, video series that are made, books that are written, and that's reviving that aspect of Islamic knowledge that we have to revive. So that's a little bit of a wisdom we can take from Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. Now, this statement of Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak is a statement that mentions specifically the aql. So remember Ibn Hibban said that there's no authentic hadith from the Prophet ﷺ about the aql, but moral character is really what the aql is about, and that's why he starts with the hadith about moral character. Now, the second statement that he is going to include, the second narration, is a narration from Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, and it specifically mentions the aql. So Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak was asked, what is the best thing that a person can be given? قال غريزة عقل غريزة عقل. It is rational discernment. It is the aql that allows a person to make proper judgments. It is having intellect that allows a person to make proper judgments. This is the best thing a person can have. The best thing a person can have is the aql, is the intellect. And he was asked, what if they don't have that? And he said, adabun hasan, have good manners, right? Let's say you don't have that strong capability of rational discernment. At least if you have good manners, right, in conforming with what you've learned from others, that will still be the best thing that you can have if you don't have the aql. What if they don't have that? He was asked. He said, a righteous brother who can advise him. So the best thing you can have is the aql. If you don't have that, good manners. If you don't have that, have a righteous friend who can give you advice. He was asked, what if they don't even have that? He said, long period of silence, right? Just keep quiet, learn to keep quiet. And he was asked, what if they don't even have that? He said, mawtun ajil, a quick death. The best thing, if you don't even have that, then just pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes your soul quickly, because your presence is not bringing any khair for anyone. It's a humorous statement, but there's an interesting wisdom that you see in this. So, first of all, what he's mentioning about the aql is a little bit different from how we've described the aql before. So we talked about the aql as being inclusive of ethics and moral virtues, and according to this, everybody has a certain degree of aql, but when people corrupt their fitrah, they lose their aql, right? They lose that capacity to think ethically and to think in a way that brings them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and closer to His to their duties towards His creation. So everyone has that level of aql. But he's talking about a higher level, like gharizatu aql. Gharizatu aql, they are able to make judgments for themselves, right? They are able to look at a situation and they're able to take a particular situation and say, this is the best possible way to act in this situation. Now that's a higher level, and in general, we might be able to do that in certain areas that we're familiar with, that we have experience with, right? For example, it might be within our career, where we have experience in something, somebody comes to us, they're more junior to us, and they say, what do I do with this situation? You say, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. You have that experience, you have that wisdom. But in general, when it comes to lots of scenarios in our life, we may not have that level of gharizatu aql. Right? We may not have that level of good problem solving, good judgment, wisdom, wise actions. So what's the next thing that we can rely on? The next thing is just have good manners in your interactions with others, right? Have good manners in your interactions with others. What the manners that you've learned that form the foundations of your ethics from a good upbringing, you learn certain manners to be generous, to be kind, to be noble, to be merciful. Try to apply these manners to the particular situation you're dealing with. You can't figure out what is the most wise course of action in this particular situation. Try to apply good manners to the situation. What if you don't even have that? Okay, if you don't even have that, the next best thing is you have somebody who's righteous, who's a friend, who can give you good advice. And this is actually something that the Muslim is encouraged to do whenever they're faced with a dilemma, is they're supposed to do two things: istishara and istikhara. So istikhara means that whenever I make a decision in something, I make a prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dua of istikhara, which is you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if this thing is good for me, decree it for me. Make it in my qadr. And if this thing is bad for me, keep it away from me. So part of dealing with a difficult decision is you make istikhara. You're seeking divine help in guiding you to the best course of action. And the other part is you're doing istishara, which is you're seeking advice from those who have more experience than you, more aql than you in that particular area of life. They may have more wisdom than you in that particular scenario, right? So if you're seeking a question about maybe managing your finances, you go to somebody who has more wisdom when it comes to finances. If you're seeking a question about how to fix your car, you go to somebody who has more wisdom and knowledge about that, right? If you're seeking a question about guidance related to your Islamic actions, right? You have a question about your prayers. You have a question about learning the deen. You will go to a scholar of the deen to guide you about these different actions. So this is istishara, seeking advice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge and wisdom if you don't know. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. If you don't know the answer, then ask those who have knowledge and expertise. So this is another part of the process. So the best thing a person can have is wise judgments themselves. If they can't do that, good manners. If they can't do that, then they have a good friend who can give them advice. If they don't have that, long periods of silence, right? Now you're getting to the point where, okay, if you're not sure how to engage in a particular situation, and you don't have any source of knowledge on what the best course of action is, realize that sometimes what you say can get you into trouble. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when he was asked for advice, he said, restrain from yourself this tongue, right? Restrain your tongue. There's so many hadith about restraining the tongue. Kuffa alayka hadha. And when he was asked, will we be held accountable for what we say? The Prophet Muhammad said, وَهَلْ يَكُبُّ النَّاسُ فِي النَّارِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ إِلَّا حَصَائِدُ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ. Is there anything which causes people to fall headfirst into hellfire except the harvest of what they say with their tongue? So there's an entire Islamic ethic around the importance of silence, the importance of not speaking in ways that will actually cause harm. And this is a problem that people in our culture today are failing to understand this virtue, the virtue of silence. Because in our culture today, we're surrounded by too much talk, too much noise, right? Social media is all about constant messaging. People are writing and messaging non-stop. Throughout the day, the average person, think about how many things they're saying in a day. And maybe they've slandered this person. Maybe they backbit this person. Maybe they spread something that wasn't true. Maybe they spoke about the religion, something without adequate knowledge. The more you talk without reflecting and being very careful about what you say, the more you are accumulating sin and getting into trouble. And this is why scholars of Islam, they said it's a sign of wisdom that a person actually doesn't speak or doesn't speak too much. In a gathering, you see somebody who just talks nonstop. This is not a sign of wisdom. Wisdom is to spend more time listening to others. something that many of us, we heard our parents say, our parents' generation say, that you have two ears and one mouth. You should listen more than you speak, right? This basic wisdom is something that Islam definitely emphasizes. The idea that we should spend more of our time listening to others and less speaking, less projecting our own opinions. Because there's more value in what we will listen and retain from others. So that is an important wisdom. And then he says, what if they don't even have that? They don't have wise judgments. They don't have good manners. They don't have a righteous friend to give them advice. They don't even have prolonged period of silence. That's it. What's left, right? What's left? You're not fulfilling you're not able to do your basic ethical roles and responsibilities in this worldly life. You can't fulfill your function as to be a khalifa on this earth, right? To be a moral custodian on this earth, a representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's divine mission for human beings. You can't, do imaratul ard. You can't build anything on this world. You can't do your actions of ibadah. What is left, right? What is left? So this is how he was emphasizing this. And we'll read the next narration as well, because it's almost the exact same statement. Number 4.
حدثنا ابن المبارك قال سئل عقيل ما أفضل ما أعطي العبد قال غريزة عقل قال فإن لم يكن قال فأدب حسن قال فإن لم يكن قال فأخ شقيق يستشيره قال فإن لم يكن قال فطول صمت قال فإن لم يكن قال فموت عاجل.
Right. So in this statement is almost identical. What is the best thing that is given to a servant? And here Abdullah ibn Mubarak is actually narrating it from Aqil, from one of his teachers. And he mentions gharizatu aql again, and then adab hasan. Then a friend, a close friend who will advise. Prolonged silence, and then the last thing he says, if somebody doesn't have any of that, then khalas, there's nothing else to hope for, right? Mawtun ajil. And then Ibn Hibban, he has some comments on this, which we will discuss inshallah ta'ala in the next class, about the difference between aql matbu' and aql masmu'. So I will just mention what these are. So aql matbu' is, you could say, natural intellect and learned intellect, or imprinted intellect and the acquired intellect. The imprinted intellect and the acquired intellect. So there is a level of intellect that, we all have certain capacities, capabilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. And those can be in many different areas, right? Some people have more social intelligence than others. Some people have more emotional intelligence than others. Some people have more spatial intelligence than others. Some people have more abstract mathematical intelligence than others, right? People have intelligence in different domains. This is the aql matbu'. So when people talk about IQ, really they're talking about one domain within aql matbu'. And they're not even thinking about aql masmu'. Aql masmu' is the acquired intellect. So everybody naturally has a certain amount of capabilities, but then there's on top of that, there's the acquired aspect, which comes through your tarbiyah, which comes through your upbringing, your education, your seeking companionship with the scholars, your study of the deen, you're immersing yourself in the wisdom of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these are the two levels of aql that he mentions. Inshallah ta'ala, we will elaborate on them in the next class. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وجزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So we still have time, inshallah ta'ala, for questions, if anyone has questions from the dars. Any questions? From the sisters, any questions? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, in our education system, the way that we test intelligence, the way that we talk about intelligence, the way we talk about the IQ, are we reinforcing this problematic notion of intelligence? I would say yes. The way, if we don't supplement it with this understanding, right? It's fine to test a person's, ability to solve certain geometrical problems, mathematical problems, word problems, but don't think that this is the entirety of intelligence. First of all, even just when it comes to aql matbu'a, there are other domains. Like some people may be very good at this stuff, but they have zero social intelligence whatsoever. Right? They don't understand what, when they've upset somebody, when they've offended someone, they can't read a social situation at all, right? They have no social, some people have no emotional intelligence, right? These are also domains of intelligence. And then there's other domains as well, right? We talked about last time, the psychologist Robert Emmons, who talked about spiritual intelligence. So this is the ability to derive meaning from different events that happen to us. Now you have all these different domains in the aql matbu'. We need to incorporate this when we talk, when we teach, especially in our educational systems, whether it's homeschooling or Islamic schools or whatever level of education we're involved with. We need to incorporate this holistic understanding of intelligence and this holistic understanding of rationality, that there are multiple domains of intelligence. And then Islam builds upon that, and it connects us with what is the purpose of our aql. The purpose of our aql is to contemplate the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in nature and in scripture. The purpose of our aql is to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's divine instructions to us, to build our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to develop and build contributions in the world that build civilization, that help others, that take care of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of our aql is to think and devise ways in which we can protect the rights of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ways that we can establish justice in the lands, to help us in the course of enjoining what is right and forbidding evil. So if we incorporate this into our education system, then we are eliminating this problem, which comes from this reductionistic view of thinking that aql is just IQ, right? Solving this mathematical problem or so on and so forth. Does that answer the question? Okay, inshallah. Any other questions? Yes. Taqleed, you mean?
Yeah, like almost like you're not, right? It's almost like thinking too much.
Yeah, so I think that there's a balance here, right? So obviously you need to have a certain degree of reliance on those who have authority and more knowledge than you, right? But the goal of that reliance is also to develop some of the thinking process yourself and to learn how they got to their conclusions. So if you just take what they say without understanding the wisdom behind it, without understanding the rationale behind it, which is what happens sometimes culturally, people just say, this is halal, this is haram, no explanation from Quran, from Sunnah, whatever. This is also not Islamic, right? To just have this very simplistic approach. And we see this in the example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ, when a young man came to him, he said, Ya Rasulullah, give me permission to commit zina. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't just say to him, no, haram, that's it, no explanation. He gave him a way to understand it. Would you approve of this for your mother, for your sister? He gave him a way to understand it. So that's something that needs to happen as well. The aql is not just about, okay, this person knows more than me, I will blindly submit, no questions asked. It's true that you should have a degree of trust. We're not asking questions to challenge their authority, but we're asking questions to learn from their wisdom and to build up our own understanding. So inshallah ta'ala, we will stop it there. Jazakallah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله 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 أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
استووا الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ذلك الفوز الكبير إن بطش ربك لشديد إنه هو يبدئ ويعيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعال لما يريد هل أتاك حديث الجنود فرعون وثمود بل الذين كفروا في تكذيب والله من ورائهم محيط بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.